Hi, everyone. My name is Janetta Scherf, and today I will be walking you through my project, Gender Inequality, a Feminist Perspective. Now, for this project, we are going to take a look at the origins of feminism and follow its progress and its struggles all the way through to the current wave of feminism. As we go through, I will highlight some of the major accomplishments as well as some of the setbacks, and then ask for your input as to how the feminist movement can evolve in order to adapt to today's challenges. So let's get into it. Feminism is looked at in four waves. The first wave is from 1848 to 1920. The second wave is from 1965 to 1990. And the third wave of feminism from 1990s to 2010. The fourth wave of feminism, which is our current wave of feminism, is from 2010 to right now. And I just wanted to share the picture that you see on the right side of your screen. That is one that I took at the Women's March in Los Angeles in 2017. So let's talk about the origins of feminism. Feminism started in 1848, and that was with women's suffrage and campaigning for the right to vote. The 19th Amendment was ratified on August 18th of 1920. And if you didn't know, the 19th Amendment is a prohibition of voter discrimination based on sex. Now, we look at that as the conclusion, or rather the successful achievement of the first wave of feminism. However, I do not confidently say that all women were then allowed to participate in the electoral process. Even famous abolitionist Sojourner Truth was prevented from participating in the electoral process. It was not until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that discrimination practices which prevented women of color from participating in the electoral process were outlawed. And that is where we will focus most of our energies today, is in the second, third, and fourth waves of feminism. Now, when we discuss the second wave of feminism, we are evaluating the time period between 1960 and 1990. There were many legislative and social changes that took place during this time. Two of those key legislative items include abortion access and no-fault divorce. Now, abortion access was granted to women through the Supreme Court case of Roe v. Wade, which gave women an option to choose whether or not it was the right time to become a mother for them. At the same time, women had increased access to birth control. In addition, women had access to their own funds and even could divorce their partners without a reason if they wanted to. Now, Philip Cohen states that divorce reform was probably the most radical change ever in the law governing families. And by the time the baby boomer generation was of marrying age, the divorce rate was at a record high for the country. Now, our textbook describes this sharp increase in the divorce rate has carried through multiple generations and had ripple effects that don't necessarily include just divorce. For example, I am the product of divorced parents, and I am still postponing the desire for marriage. And that's very common. We have seen an increase in cohabitating relationships as opposed to choosing the traditional route of marriage. Now, while no fault divorce has allowed people to leave marriages for any reason, there is a downside to this newfound independence, and that is the gender inequality in the workplace and the burden that's placed on single mothers. Single mothers have the highest proportion of families living in poverty when compared with other family dynamics. Single mothers also have to face the burden of securing affordable childcare in order to support themselves and their families. Now, while women were gaining ground quickly in the workplace with the passage of the Equal Pay Act, many employers still did, and in fact still do, discriminate against women because they fear female employees will require greater amounts of time off or need to work shorter hours. And this type of discrimination has not ended. And it's very important to understand that even though the Equal Pay Act, in theory, should provide equal pay between men and women doing the same job, what you will see is a bit more of a covert discrimination, where a woman may be given a different title to a job, although a man has the exact same position. And for that reason, it does not qualify as discrimination under the Equal Pay Act. So let's go ahead and jump into the third wave of feminism. Now, the third wave of feminism is from roughly 1990 to 2010. Now, while women were still only being paid 70 to 75% of what men were being paid, feminists did have some progress in that era. We had the passage of the Family Marriage Leave Act, or the FMLA, in 1993. And what this did was allowed employees to take time off for qualified family care, such as having a child or taking care of an elderly parent. And that way they could take time off from their job without fear of losing their job. Also, at the time, we had Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was appointed to the Supreme Court. Ruth Bader Ginsburg would go on to be a large supporter of gender equality and civil rights. At the same time, you had increases in women continuing to pursue secondary schooling and market work instead of care work. And with that, let's go ahead and jump right in to the fourth wave of feminism. Now, this is our current wave of feminism. The fourth wave of feminism is where we start to see the expansion of feminism from focusing solely on gender equality and instead moving towards gender inclusivity. Feminist scholars begin to embrace the idea of doing gender rather than having a gender. We also see the Supreme Court case of Obergefell versus Hodges, determined in 2015, which legalized gay marriage. In 2017, we had the Me Too movement, which gained notoriety from various news sources all across the country. And the Me Too movement was known for exposing sexual harassment and violence within the workplaces. Now, although the fourth wave of feminism has made a lot of progress, there is still room for improvement. For example, the Me Too movement did wonders for exposing sexual violence in the workplace, but our society has experienced a backlash from this awareness of the violence. Researchers have said that in our efforts to pursue gender equality in the workplace, we have focused efforts strictly on promoting the equality or seeking to add a system or set of rules on top of an existing institution. And the failure in that is that when you have an existing institution that already has oppressive systems in place, which allow gender inequality to exist, it's very difficult to then try to add a system of gender equality on top or add another process to that existing institution. So the desired method is to now examine an institution that has certain processes that allow gender inequality to exist and deconstruct those processes and go through and break down each part of that system so that you can then create a space for gender equality to exist. For example, one researcher was trying to provide bias training to staff, and they found that there is often a backlash and an increase in discrimination. Sometimes there are grievance systems that will end up blaming the victim instead of the perpetrator. Now, many institutions within the United States remain male dominated, and this is across various professions, healthcare institutions, universities, and even the military. Now, we know that male dominated institutions are more likely to have increased rates of sexual abuse. However, grievance systems and reporting the abuse is only as effective as the investigations that are done after it is reported. So there's still room to improve here. Now, when we look back over the entire last century, the feminist movement has made tremendous progress. However, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are in order for the feminist movement to evolve and continue to succeed. Um, over the course of the feminist movement's history, progress has focused majority of the time on white women in mostly capitalist societies. Some researchers have suggested that this creates a type of class blind feminism that is not truly rooted in freedom from oppression for all women. In addition, modern feminists face the difficulty of having become isolated from women who choose to embrace traditional gender roles or more conservative ideas, whereas the feminist movement is traditionally considered a liberal idea. Now, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Does the future of feminism lie in its ability to disregard conservative and liberal ideas and instead pursue a more socialist agenda? Or does the feminist movement need to align with other movements such as intersectionality and take a look at campaigning for social justice through those systems in order to bring equality to all institutions for people of all genders? I would love to hear your thoughts. If you are interested in any of the research that went into this project, I will show it to you on the next slide. And I would love to hear your opinion on the feminist movement. Thank you.